going to attempt doing this yet again. I think the fates are against me because the wind is already going crazy. And I'm outside today for various reasons, but I'm going to try to do it anyway. So, hi and welcome back. Today is January 1st, 2017, and I will have this uploaded, hopefully, fingers crossed, if my computer behaves, tomorrow, which will be January 2nd, which is a Monday. So, if you are a new viewer, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come hang out with me for a bit. And if you are actually coming back after the insanity that was 2016, thank you so much for hanging in there with me. And hopefully this year will go a lot smoother. So, if this is your first time tuning in, my name is Cameron, and I have a podcast about all things knitting, and I typically recap what's going on in my life as well. And I am a homeschooling mom to 4, and I live in the DFW area in Texas. So, that's me. If you are looking for a place to find me, you can find me on Facebook, Ravelry, and Instagram, all as The Knitty Muggins. And I also have a woefully neglected blog, theknittymuggins.com, where I will try to be very vigilant this year on posting show notes and links and information on projects that I'm working on as well. So, quickly, a show update, I guess, so to speak. When I started trying to do a podcast, I actually started doing videos Christmas of 2015. It was my first Christmas to knit gifts for anybody. I had really just started getting knitting. I had learned to knit a few years ago, but nothing more than a dishcloth, and it just lay forgotten about for many, many years. And that was the year I decided I was going to try to truly start knitting. And so that was probably fall, late summer, early fall of 2015, and I knit gifts and I made videos about what I was knitting and decided I want to join the podcast community and start a podcast. And then 2016 happened, which I think is how a lot of people feel. And so regularly filmed and edited and uploaded videos did not happen. But this year I have my husband on board. He has agreed to help me as long as I am recording on Sundays, and he's here to help me. Then he can watch my kids and I can find a quiet place to record, which is why I'm outside, because it's New Year's Day and my kids are sugared up and excited and hyper, and he's watching the Cowboys play, and he is a very loud, enthusiastic fan of the Dallas Cowboys. So I just figured it would be best to film outside. So I am feeling slightly under the weather today. So I have my Pinkie Pie mug here full of tea. I am a major tea fan. I'm waiting on my big order of David's tea. If you follow me on Instagram, you would see what I ordered. And then I also have a milk frother coming in so I can make my own lattes from teas. That should be in this week. So hopefully all of my good tea stuff will be coming in. But for now I have Irish tea with some vanilla sugar and caramel creamer. That's kind of keeping my throat hanging in there today. Sorry for the slurping, it's still really hot. I just poured it out of the kettle. Okay, so I have my show notes down here, so hopefully I don't forget anything. And that is one thing I did for 2017, but I'll get to that later. So first up, I normally love to share acquisitions. It has been so long since I have done a video, and there has been so much yarn that has come and gone in that time frame. I really hate to cover too much. I did get 2 knitting related gifts for Christmas, and so I will show those to you. Neither are fiber. The first is I got this set of knitting needles. Ta-da! Are they not beautiful? And these are the Knitter's Pride Royale 2015 limited edition needles. And so they are wood with the metal tips, which I think is the perfect blend. And the tips are not like crazy pointy, but they're a good bit. So that will help with keeping stitches on the needles with the wood, but the speed of the metal tips. And then it comes with this cute little bag, and this is what has the cords and the keys and all of that in there. Unfortunately, there's not a nice compact case for the needles like a lot of the Knitter Pride sets, but that's fine. I love this box, it's beautiful, so that does not bother me a bit. Put that over there. And then I had this on my Kindle, but I wanted a actual, in-hand copy, so this is the Best of Jane Austen Knits, and I am really excited about this. I got Anne of Green Gables and literary knits last year for Christmas, so there's kind of a theme. I am definitely a literary person. I love reading. I don't get a whole lot of time to do it right now, so typically when I do, I kind of revert back to my favorites. So anything by Jane Austen, anything that is, historical fact or fiction does not bother me. Anything from typically the Dark Ages through World War II is my preferred timeline in general. Of course, I love Harry Potter, and so I enjoy reading that. This is my sweater weather shirt. So I have Sherlock, who comes back on today. Yes! And a doctor from Doctor Who, and Harry with his Hogwarts scarf. So I felt like that was a good one for today. It's almost sweater weather. Not quite, because I am in Texas, so it's in the 50s. I have my hoodie, but I think it's mostly just because I'm feeling slightly poorly today. So those are my acquisitions. Like I said, not a whole lot to show you, but I will get to my plan for yarn later. So, knit-alongs. I participated in some knit-alongs the tail end of 2016. I did the Q3, the third quarter knit-along from Karen, who does the podcast T-Shirts and Shawls. She's amazing. And I did the Sugar Plum Shawl from Mina Phillip, who is the, you may have seen her in the podcast, the Knitting Expat. And then I also did Spindrift by Helen Stewart. So I managed to get 2 shawls done that quarter, and last year is the first year I did any knitting for myself, and I kept both of those. And Spindrift is the one that actually was the random selected winner. So I was sent a beautiful skein of yarn from Karen, so thank you so much, Karen. And I have that in my stash. I cannot wait to use it. I'm trying to find something worthy because I'm very, very protective of my Smooshi with cashmere yarns that I have. So I'm saving it for something really delicious. And then we had the fourth quarter knit along, which is the Q3 was supposed to be any shell knit with fingering weight yarn, which was pretty easy. And then Q4 was, which ended last night, was the Bow Ties Are Cool shawl, which I picked, and that was by Jenny Santo. And Karen's outline for the fourth quarter knit along was to have a shawl knit that was inspired by fandom. And I really, really, really wanted to do Bow Ties Are Cool. I did not finish in time. November and December were not good months for me. But I'll talk more about that at the end of the podcast when I do my personal recap. So this is as far as I got. I got through the second clue. That is it. If you have not heard of it before, Bow Ties Are Cool was originally a mystery knit-along. So it has 5 clues, if I remember correctly. And I thought, oh, this is easy. I'll do a clue a week, just like how it was when it was released, and I can get this hammered out, even with my Christmas knitting, and that did not happen. And the 2 yarns that I used for this was Lazy Cat yarn in Opulence, and it is the Time and Space colorway, and that is this beautiful dark blue, Tardesy blue. If you watch The Doctor, you know what I'm talking about. And then this is this colored variegated, is that the right word I'm looking for? Yarn is Harvest Moon, and this is by Twisted Owl. and I loved this. To me, this reminded me of the exploding TARDIS. I actually told Abby that when I bought this from her at Stitches. So this is as far as I got, and I was going to stay up late and finish knitting it in time for New Year's Eve, and that went disastrously. This has been hanging out in my Yarn Pop owl bag. And it has the 2 grommets, so that's where I fed each of the colors out so they wouldn't get too tangled up and twisted. As you can see, it did not get done in time farther along, and a lot of that came down to, like I said, the quarter was very intense for me. I have 4 children, like I said. My oldest is my son, who's 9, and then I have 3 daughters who are 3, 5, and 7. And they were all 3 in the Nutcracker this year, and so we had a lot of ballet practices to go to, which you think would be good knitting time. I thought it would be good knitting time. Unfortunately, it wasn't because it was so chaotic trying to wrangle 2 angels and a mouse who were on the stages at different times. As well as, I mean, just chaos hit our home during that time. And so there were weeks and weeks and weeks where I didn't pick up any knitting at all, which also threw behind my Christmas knitting. So my Christmas knitting, I finished literally, I was blocking on Christmas Eve, and some of them didn't even get wrapped. It was that insane. So I didn't get to finish it. And I've kind of thought over it and slept on it for a couple of nights, and I have finally decided that I'm actually not going to finish it. Kind of bummed about that, but at the same time, my reasoning is this. I made some very big mistakes during the top section, which is where you make some bow ties. I really, really botched it, and I think it comes down to my anxiety and my depression and my ADD were really kicking my butt at that point in time. And my youngest was very, very ill and had to be rushed to the hospital. And so she laid on me for several days where she just was lethargic, and I wanted her right there with me to keep an eye on her because it was kind of scary for a while there. And so when I did knit, I wasn't really being intentional and mindful of what I was doing, and I made some serious mistakes. And I'm sure I could go back and I could rip that section out and redo it, but really that is such a beautifully written pattern that I want to do justice to, and right now I personally cannot put enough into it to do it justice. And if I do that pattern, and I do want to do that pattern, I want to do it properly and I want to do it well. When I was doing the Sugar Plum shawl by Mina Phillip, it's again a great pattern. Towards the end of it, there was a lot going on in my life, and I just kind of wanted to rush through it and get it done. And unfortunately, when I look at that shawl now, I still enjoy it, I still wear it, but when I pull it out, all I personally see is all of the flaws, and I don't want to do that again with another shawl. I want to do it well. So I'm going to pull it out, rewind it, and put it in a bag with a note that it's meant for bow ties or quills, so I don't forget and accidentally grab it for something else. And I will pick that shawl up again at another time when it's just a little bit easier for me to give it the attention it needs, and go from there. So as far as 2017 goes, there are 2 knit-alongs that I am planning to participate in that start today, January 1st. The first is, again, Karen's quarterly knit-alongs that she does for her podcast, T-shirts and shawls. And this quarter's theme is anything that has been in your queue or your favorites for at least a year. My queue and my favorites have been cleaned out for a long time. I'm not very good at using either of those features on Ravelry. But I did want to go back to patterns that I've had in my library that I could remember had been in there for at least 1 year. So I've pretty much narrowed it down to one of 2 shawls. I still might pick something else, but at this point I'm really kind of going back and forth between 2. And one of them is Stripe Study by Vera, I know I'm probably going to say this completely wrong, but I think it's Valamaki. That's one of the first shawls that I actually ever wanted to knit, and I started knitting it and I put it down, and I was still a pretty new knitter, and I did not mark in the pattern where I stopped. So I have no clue what I was doing. And so it all got pulled out. So that's one that I'm looking at. Another one that I'm looking at possibly doing is Pendulum, which I picked out October of 2015. So that is one that I've had for over a year. And they're both 2-color shawls. It's just a matter really of triangular or crescent at this point. And going through my yarn and finding the 2 colors I want to play with and seeing which one I think speaks to me with those 2 colors. So I need to go stash diving. And Pendulum is by Amy Miller. So I'm down to picking one of those 2 for the first quarter knit along from Karen. And then the other one is I want to do Box of Socks, and that is going to be for the Yarngasm podcast. And that runs all of this year, so I am planning on doing that one as well. I'm going to take another sip of tea, guys. I'm sorry. Okay. And I can't talk today. Actually got myself a box that I liked, that I thought was cute, to put my socks in throughout the year. So, Box of Socks. I'm going to do that one. Okay. So, normally at this point, I would be happy to show you my finished objects. However, they have all been gifted. So you can check my Ravelry page to see pictures if you want. But for Christmas, I made a trio of hats for my son, my husband, and his father. They all are deer hunters. And so I made all 3 of them camouflaged hats to wear for when they go hunting. So I called that my hat trio. I made a pair of slippers for my mother-in-law that I call the crap slippers. The story behind that is I had a plan in place for my holiday knitting, and I decided that it would be nicer to ask everybody what they wanted me to knit for them. And I got varying answers, and the answer I got from her is I need another pair of slippers because my dog keeps crapping in the ones that I have. So I thought, okay, I'm going to knit slippers, and they will probably be used as a toilet. Awesome. So that's why I called those the crap slippers. And to be honest, when I got done knitting them, I hated the way they looked so much. I didn't really even use a pattern. I just kind of went willy-nilly on them. But to be honest, I wasn't really invested in them either because I don't even know how to react to it. So I did those. I looked at the Brighton Cowl by Veronica Parsons to knit for my mother's mother. She does not like to be called the G word. And that's essentially what I did, and I believe I still have it listed as the Brighton Cowl, but I need to go through and make some special notes. I believe in the pattern suggested, or you were supposed to do the star stitch, and I, again, was not doing great juggling life at that point, and so I just did simple yarn overs, knit 2 together yarn overs during those sections of the cowl. So it's technically not the Brighton Cowl, but it was greatly inspired by the Brighton Cowl. I made a pair of Royce City Rollers that were rainbow from Knit Picks Felici for my sister-in-law. I did the Westminster hat using Blue Sky Baby Alpaca for my mom. I did Fafner from Karen Dawn Designs, Karen being the one who does t-shirts and shawls. I did Fafner for my stepdad. And then I also did some dishcloths for my sister-in-law. So she got socks and dishcloths, and I think that is it. Yes, that is it. So I don't have anything else that I knit. I mean, I literally just barely eked out getting my Christmas knitting done. And as far as works in progress, I have 2, not counting Bow Ties Are Cool, because like I said, that one's going to get pulled out. So the first one is sitting in a project bag that I got at Rose Path Weaving in Tyler. I like to stop there when I go to see my mom. And this is just pink yarn that someone gave to me. I believe it's acrylic, and but it's easy care, which is what I was after. I am mid-row because I'm a genius. But this is wadded up as it is. This is another Spindrift, and this is for my stepmother. This is going to be her belated Christmas gift. She saw my Spindrift that I did using mermaid shoes by Smooshy. And she loved it, and so I thought, I know what to make you then. So that is one project, and I'm about halfway through with it, even though it's wadded up and you can't tell. The other project is in my Erin Lane sheeple, Doctor Who sheeple bag. And this is something I started late summer, had to put to the side while I did my Christmas knitting. My husband thought I forgot. I didn't. I pulled them out last night. He was pleasantly surprised. And these are my 2 at a time socks, if I can get it all untangled. So I am currently working on the heel flap. And this is just some Regia sock yarn. And they are cuffed down. But yeah, these will be for him. And they have my little sheep markers to denote which is the front of the sock. So those, I'm on the heel flap because I am definitely a heel flap and gusset heel person when it comes to socks. I hate short rows. I hate short rows. Something I need to get over in 2017. That's it for my works in progress. I don't have a whole lot. I kind of didn't want any on my needles by today. I wanted to start with fresh needles and fresh projects for the fresh year, but it didn't happen. So that's it. And the socks, I'm not necessarily using a pattern. I've knit a couple of pair of the Rose City Rollers, and so I kind of just took that general pattern and added a cuff to it, just a vanilla. They're just plain vanilla socks. There's nothing. Just made an 8-inch cuff because my husband wears boots to work a lot, and just doing the same heel flap, gusset, and then toady creases as the Rose City Rollers. So kind of using that pattern to go off of. And so that's it as far as knitting goes. And now for my year-end goals for 2017. So I have a nifty, super fancy notebook. I feel like Blue's Clues. My handy dandy notebook. Too bad it's not blue with a big paw print. And I made this notebook for myself just kind of for my own, for my own self. So I have my 2017 knit goals here, and then I have a page for each month to list out the projects I do, and then also on the back of each month's page I have an area to write down the number of skeins of yarn in, the number of skeins of yarn out, the number of completed projects, the number of yards that I knit that month, and the number of grams of yarn I knit that month. So my goals for 2017, I don't have a whole lot. I should probably get over short rows and make ones this year, but I don't have that written down. Really, I want to do more yarn going out of the house than coming in. I have 11 drawers of yarn and then bags of yarn. So some of it was gifted to me, and honestly, I don't need it. I participate in a homeschool co-op, and they're actually going to have a crochet class this semester. So I'm probably going to take quite a bit of that up there for the ones that are learning how to crochet. I'll take it up there and let them have that, and then that kind of frees up the budget for that teacher to buy any other anything else that she may want to get for that class for the semester. And then it also gets yarn out of my house that I know good and well I'm not going to use. The birds are really chatty today. I want to participate in 5 knit-alongs this year, any 5 knit-alongs. I kind of figure they'll be the 4 quartered ones for t-shirts and shawls, and then also a box of socks. If I do more than 5, great. If I, but I want to do 5. I want to participate in 5 because I enjoy being part of the community and participating in that way. And I want to start Christmas knitting early this year. I said that last year and I failed miserably at holding myself to that this year. So I think what I want to do is figure out the number of knit gifts I want to make for Christmas of this year, for 2017, and spread that out over a year. So do maybe a gift or 2 every month or 2, depending on what all I come up with, and do it that way. And also, I had a great plan. I don't want to talk about it in case anybody that gets a gift from me is watching, but I had a really fun idea. I ran it past some different friends of mine, and they all thought it was a great idea and said they would probably steal that idea. And then at the last minute, like I said, I asked everybody what they wanted, and it kind of threw that whole plan on its head. And I am so sorry about these birds. And I think that really threw me off. So this year I think I'm going to stick with my own plan, and hopefully they'll just like it and go with it. I think they will. And so that'll really help me to not have last minute things of, oh, and can I get this, and oh, and can I get that coming in at the last minute. And like one person was very, very specific with what exactly they wanted, and I'm not a designer yet. I probably never will be. I don't know why I said yet. I just don't think that's my gift, and trying to find a pattern that fit exactly what she wanted was literally impossible. I couldn't find one. And so I just picked a pattern that was as close to it as I could find and went with that. So I think to save myself from, and it was the gift that I liked knitting the least. I did not want to knit that. By the time I got done, I was like, ugh, I never want to do this pattern again. And my husband was there, and he's very, very laid back, but he's also very much the mechanical engineer. So, he takes things and he likes to solve the problem. And he said, no, you're not knitting next Christmas. I'm not going to watch you kill yourself like this next year. And I said, no, next year I'm going to do it my way. So that's my plan for this year. I am knitting my way. And if they don't like it, then they can leave it and I'll keep it. So, but I think overall everybody will like my idea. So those are my goals for 2017. And that and regularly podcasting. So I kind of touched on this in the beginning. If you've hung in through my ramblings and kind of running through things, hopefully I won't have to have it kind of smushed like this in the future. But what I would like to do, looking at our schedule objectively, which we are homeschoolers, so our schedule changes pretty much on a quarterly basis at this point. I would like to record on Sundays and then have Sunday and Monday to kind of edit and then make sure it's uploaded on Mondays. And I would like to do it every 2 weeks. So while I was not 100% ready to film today, it's Sunday and I wanted to get started. So that sounds oddly like my dog barking. Someone must have let my dog out in the front yard, because I can hear that sounds like my Bella. My Bella Trix Lestrange. If you're on my Instagram, you see lots of pictures of her because that dog is a hoot. Okay. So if you were tuning in strictly for knitting, I'm done for this time. I'll see you again in 2 weeks, and hopefully it'll be more organized and cohesive. No harm, no foul if you want to stop watching now. But just, I felt like at this point I would do a recap of my 2016 year and shed some insight on why it was so chaotic with filming and knitting and all things that should have been normal and easy to do. So if you want to stick with me for that, you are welcome to. So 2016, y'all, was hard. I feel like it was hard for a lot of people, but it was really hard for me. It was really hard. So just to kind of, I guess, go through it all, I My husband told me today, I hope that this New Year's is starting off better than last year's. I hope it's already better than last year, and I said it is, because last New Year's Eve I went to bed early and I had an emotional meltdown in my bed. I think that's the hardest I've sobbed in my whole life. Um, I didn't even want to have a 2016. I wanted to skip straight to 2017, to be honest. And I think that kind of set the tone mentally for me for the year. But I just remember being in my bed and crying and saying, I don't want it to be 2016 because I know 2016 is going to be the year that my Grammy dies. So it started off on a very much depressing note. And I was right. I got a phone call the first week in January that I needed to rush to Georgia where she lived, because she was going in for surgery and probably would not come out. And thankfully she did, and I was able to go and see her and tell her I loved her, which she knew. We were very, very close. And my children were able to see her again, even though it was not the her I grew up with. She was, confined to a bed. She was in a lot of pain. She was on a lot of medications, and just really not doing very well. She was not the adventurous, fun Grammy that took me on road trips every summer and always made every adventure fun. Even when we were lost, we had fun. So I spent the first week of January last year in Georgia for the most part. I missed my husband's birthday. His birthday is on the 6th, and I was in Georgia. So that was hard. And because we've been together every birthday of his since we were teenagers. And it was just really hard. And sure enough, I was home not for long. A week, maybe two. I think it was pretty much a week I was home. And I got called back out to go to Georgia. And I made it there in the afternoon, and she passed away that evening. So I was able to be with her. And she was surrounded by family, and she went pretty peacefully, all things considered. But that was hard. That was a really kind of kick in the teeth way to start 2016 for me. Like I said, we were incredibly close, and I think that's been the biggest struggle for 2016. This was the year of firsts, the first round of birthdays, the first round of holidays, the first she wasn't here, or I couldn't call her up, or if I kind of hit a stumbling block, I couldn't call and go, Grammy, I need some wisdom, can you help me out here? I didn't have that from her this year, and I'm glad she's no longer suffering. She had beaten breast cancer multiple times, and when she passed, she had multiple myeloma. Kidney failure was the ultimate culprit, but it was brought on because of the multiple myeloma, which is a form of cancer. And it was really rough to watch her go through that. So that's pretty much how my January started out. Coincidentally, because we homeschool, our homeschool year starts in January and ends in late September, early October. We don't take off a summer break. We take off October, November, December. So our school year was really disjointed. As we tried to start, we had to go to Georgia. We tried to start again, we had to go to Georgia. And then I was honestly just too depressed to really put as much effort into their schooling as I should. So we did school. We did do our school, but honestly, I think my children were struggling and I was struggling, and they were 6 months to a year ahead of their, public and private school peers. But they were really starting to struggle. And so I think last year was the year that I took stock of that, and I decided to take 2 years of school, or 1 year of school where they were 1 year ahead, and stretch it into 2 years. So by the time they finish, they will actually be on point with their peers, which I have no problem with. I don't want to have a kid in Harvard at the age of 15. I like them being with their peers because they do participate in a lot of extracurricular activities. They do participate in a homeschool co-op. They do Awanas at our church on Wednesday nights. My son is in, the preteen group at our church, and My daughters are in ballet, he does baseball. You know, there's a lot of things where I kind of like them being on the same level as their peers. So it doesn't bother me. So what we did was we took one semester and made it last year, and we're taking the second semester, and that's going to be this year. And like I said, by the time we finish, they'll be on par with their peers. So there's a few things we didn't get to tie up before the end of the year. That we'll pick up. We start our school next week. But that just made it for a really challenging 2016, taking everything that, I mean, I had a curriculum that we threw out that wasn't working for us anymore. We had a lot of struggles. We found out my son has ADHD, and so there was a lot of going to the doctors and figuring out his medication, which, I mean, we still just recently fully got under control for him. So there was just a lot of challenges with that as well. And of course, that all affected my knitting and my ability to have anything to talk about in a podcast. So that was kind of crazy as well. So yeah, that was kind of the beginning. That was January and February. And then beginning in January, but really kind of ramping up in February and March, I started noticing that I was having a lot of health problems that needed to be tended to. And I started undergoing a lot of testing and blood work and checkups and kind of going through that whole rigmarole. And it essentially came down to I had to make a choice if I wanted to have a uterine ablation or a partial hysterectomy. And by partial, I mean they took everything but the ovaries. And in the end, we picked the hysterectomy because the ablation did not, the odds that it would work as effectively as we needed it to were incredibly low. And my doctor, who I have been with for forever since she set up a practice here, was not confident that that was the best choice either. And she took care of my pre-cancer scare. She took care of delivering all 4 of my children. She's an amazing woman, and so I trusted her when she said, we can do this, but I can't promise you it'll work. But if you want to try to buy some time, but in the end, you will have to have one. We might get you 5 years. I said, then let's just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off and get it done. And unfortunately, because of some of the problems that we were having and because of my past medical history, I couldn't do it the quote-unquote easy way. I don't want to say that because I think it's a difficult procedure no matter how it's done. It's kind of like birthing a baby. No matter how it's achieved, getting a baby here is hard. But they could not do it in a way that that would have been made for an easier recovery, so to speak. So I had to be completely opened abdominally, and that really slowed me down for several months. It affected, the hormone change affected my vision, which affected my knitting. So yeah, it was just really kind of crazy overall. So that kind of threw me off until June. And then we had a couple of really good months in June, and then it kind of slid into fall where we had a lot of illness with the family and multiple rounds of strep and sinus infections and things like that. And then come to find out that one of my kids' friends had lice, and that was not disclosed to anybody, and it made its way into our house. And so I dealt with lice for quite a while. Got over that, and then it was time to really get into Christmas knitting and the Nutcracker and everything else. So really kind of crazy year. So I'm really happy that this year should hopefully be easier for us. I say hopefully. I don't want to say it will be and then curse myself or jinx myself. So that's that. So that's our 2016 in review. I'm really glad it's over. That was not a fun year. So already this year's starting off a little bit better. Yeah. So that's it, and I'm going to go inside and work on loading this onto the computer so I can edit and work on some socks for my husband, and I will see you again in 2 weeks. Bye guys. Happy knitting.